Hello, Assalamu alaikum. अच्छा यार कोई भी बता दे, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good. And can you also see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Who is going to volunteer? कौन करेगा आज? कौन करेगा? Let's make it quick. आज इंशाल्लाह जुमा है, ठीक है? Let's ताकि हम कोशिश करें कि 12:55, 1 o'clock तक फिनिश कर लें, ठीक है? तो I need a quick volunteer. कोई भी यार कर ले प्लीज. अब मुझे do not force me to go through the list again, calling one by one. Okay, 507. 507. 098. 098. 060. 060. यार सिर्फ रिस्पॉन्ड कर लें, ठीक है? Then you can come up with an excuse कि आपका माइक काम नहीं कर रहा है या कोई और भी एक्सक्यूज बना दें, लेकिन रिस्पॉन्ड कर लें. Can you hear me?
Sir.
060, can you hear me? 106?
Yes, sir.
Okay, give me 1 second.
Sure.
Okay, sorry, 106 नंबर क्या, sorry नाम क्या आपका?
Sir, Basil.
Basil, thank you so much. You're saving my time. ठीक है? So much appreciated. Thank you. Okay, so can you see my screen, Basil?
Ji, sir.
ठीक है. So we will start chapter number 9 today. And I'm so sorry. Okay, my computer is slow. So we'll start chapter number 9. It is benefit cost analysis in public sector economics. Now, benefit and cost analysis, normally the way we call it cost benefit analysis, okay? But in this chapter, we will call it benefit cost analysis. Now, benefit cost analysis, again, it's an analytical tool. Why do we need this tool? Because we need this tool to evaluate public sector projects, okay? Projects by the governments. ठीक है? मैं जरा quickly जाऊंगा. So let's say if you would like me to focus more on something, please stop me in the middle, Basil, okay?
Okay, sir.
Okay. In chapter number 8, we covered internal rate of return analysis for multiple projects. One of the problem was ranking inconsistency. So if I use different tools, for example, PW versus IRR, okay, we have a phenomena of ranking inconsistency. If you remember from one of my slides, based on PW, the ranking of my projects, for example, is A and B, but based on IRR, my project ranking is B and A. Okay, so there is inconsistency in ranking. Okay, even if I use project ROR versus overall ROR, okay, again, we may have a phenomena of ranking inconsistency. Okay, how do we tackle that problem? We tackle that problem through incremental cash flow analysis. So whenever we say incremental cash flows, it means that those incremental cash flows are the difference between cash flows of two different projects. Okay, and the way we evaluate projects based on incremental cash flows is we try to see whether additional investment is justified. If additional investment is justified, we accept the higher cost alternative. So for example, if delta I star B minus A, so what is it? It is actually the internal rate of return for the incremental cash flow. This delta shows incremental. Delta shows normally changes. Okay. If it is greater than or equal to MAR, okay, then B is accepted. Okay, B is justified. Okay. If delta I star of B minus A is less than MAR, then what do we do, Basil?
So that means project A is feasible.
Thank you so much. Okay, the low cost investment is feasible, is accepted. Okay, now let's say if we have multiple projects, like for example, A, B, C, and D, okay, if they are revenue alternatives, the first thing we do is always order your alternatives. Okay, order based on initial investment from low to high. Okay, if they are revenue alternatives, we always start our evaluation by comparing the lowest cost alternative with DN. Okay, so DN is my defender and A is my challenger. Okay, so defender in the competition is the low cost investment. Challenger is the high cost investment. Okay, and suppose in this competition, D is accepted. It means that D is the winner. Sorry, A is the winner. So A will go into the next stage and will compete against B. Okay, A will be in that competition defender and B will be the challenger. Okay, so the point of this bullet is if we are evaluating multiple alternatives, we always do pairwise evaluation. It means we are evaluating 2 projects at a time. You cannot evaluate 3 projects because the incremental cash flow, of course, the increment can be already calculated for 2 projects, not for multiple projects. I mean, not for more than 2 projects. So we always do evaluation pairwise. In chapter number 9, we will talk about public sector projects. Okay. We will look at the key differences between a public sector and a private sector project. And we will learn how to calculate benefit cost ratio for a single project. Okay. In the later part of this chapter, in my next lecture, we will talk about BC ratio for multiple projects. Okay. So let's start. Now, public sector project, okay, it's a product, service, or system that is used, financed, owned by the citizens of any government level. Okay, that government level may be local, that government level be provincial or national, or what we call federal level government. Now, the projects are financed by the government. Okay, but the government is not the actual owner. Government is actually the custodian of funds. And where are government revenues coming from, Basil?
Sir, taxes, government projects, etc.
Okay, taxes. Normally they are coming from taxes. Okay, taxes are contributing by the citizens. Okay, so the actual ownership of the government funds, citizens are actually the actual owners. Okay, so generally for democratic societies, we say that government is for the people and by the people. So the money is owned by the government. Okay, that's why we call it, it's a public money. Government is only the custodian. ठीक है, जो government level हो सकता है, in Pakistan, for example, it may be a local government, it may be a provincial government, and it may be a federal level government. The primary purpose, ठीक है, अच्छा, okay, what would be typically a product? So public sector project may be a product. तो product कैसे है? Can you give me an example?
सर जैसे हम लोग टोल टैक्स पे करते हैं उसके बदले में रोड मिलती हैं
Sorry,
शायद।
sir, roads.
सर जैसे हम लोग टोल टैक्स पे करते हैं तो उसके बदले में हमें रोड्स, प्रॉपर कंस्ट्रक्टेड रोड्स मिल जाती हैं शायद, ये एग्जांपल हो यहाँ।
Okay, that's, लेकिन टोल टैक्सेस को थोड़ा सा हटा के, yes, जो आपके हाईवेज हैं, it's like a product, it's a public sector project, but at the end of the day, it's a product. Service क्या है? What would be a typical service?
So healthcare.
Healthcare, ठीक है, आपका healthcare एक service है, transportation is a service, ठीक है, transportation is, system क्या होगा? ठीक है, आपका जो criminal and justice system है, ठीक है, आपका जो safety है, ठीक है, it's a system, ठीक है. Now, the primary purpose is to provide services to citizens for the public good at no profit. What do we mean by public good?
So, for the benefit of the public or for their
Okay, it looks like that it is for the benefit of the public. ठीक है, it's for the benefit of the public. ठीक है, लेकिन public good ये है कि it is actually made with public money. ठीक है, और in projects में we cannot restrict our citizen to use those products. Like for example, our government of Pakistan ने motorway बना लिया, तो government of Pakistan cannot restrict the use of that motorway, let's say for a particular segment of the society. Government ये नहीं कह सकता कि this project is only for the government, like for example employees, कि सिर्फ वही travel कर सकते हैं. Or let's say this road can be only used by, for example, people with a certain domicile. Okay, you cannot do that. If it is made with public money, it means that you cannot restrict the use of that public asset. ठीक है? The other key characteristic of any public sector project is actually no profit. Okay, so one of the students said, for example, he talked about the toll taxes. Okay, so toll taxes are actually, it's not a mean of generating revenues. No, it's not. Okay, it is only levied on the passengers only to make sure that in future, if we need to maintain that particular road, okay, we have some money. ठीक है, वो road maintenance के लिए है. ठीक है, it is not used as a means for generating revenues. Government hospitals, उसमें जब आप जाते हैं reception पे and you pay, for example, let's say 20 rupees or 50 rupees or whatever, ठीक है, that money is not meant for generating revenues. वो hospital का let's say maintenance है or something else, it is meant for that. ठीक है, so normally public sector projects are not meant for profit. ठीक है, और मैं word use कर रहा हूँ normally, it's a norm. ठीक है, ये मतलब rule नहीं है. It's not like that. For example, Pakistan Steel Mills. ठीक है, it's a public sector organization. ठीक है, PIA, it's a public sector organization, but at the same time they are trying to generate profits. लेकिन वो profits कहाँ पे जाती हैं at the end? The profit is going back to government treasury. ठीक है, उसके आप ये समझें कि उसके कोई शेयर होल्डर्स नहीं है. ठीक है, जब गवर्नमेंट ट्रेजरी में जाता है तो इट मींस दैट दैट मनी इज सिटीजंस मनी. डू यू सी द डिफरेंस बासा?
यस सर.
गुड. ठीक है, अगर कोई प्राइवेट सेक्टर प्रोजेक्ट हुआ तो द प्रॉफिट इज गोइंग टू द शेयर होल्डर्स. ठीक है, अगर मेरे पास शेयर्स हैं तो मेरे साथ मतलब शेयर हो जाएगा वो प्रॉफिट. Okay, areas such as public health, criminal justice, safety, transportation, welfare, and utilities are publicly owned and require economic evaluation. Okay, now utilities, in some countries it is entirely owned by the government. Okay, in some countries it is partially owned. जो generation है, ठीक है, sometimes it is with the government, but इसका जो distribution है इसको privatize करते हैं. तो again there is no rule of thumb here. ठीक है, वो हर एक गवर्नमेंट अपने लिए डिफरेंट कर सकता है. Now all these projects require economic evaluation. As I said, government is the custodian of funds. ठीक है, at the end of the day it's public money. So as a custodian you have to spend that money intelligently. Okay, from intelligently what I mean that you have to conduct economic evaluation of all projects. If those projects are economically justified, in other words, if there are justifications for those projects, okay, you do those projects, you start those projects. But if they are not economically justified, you do not start those projects. Okay? Now, what are the key differences between a public sector and a private sector project? One of the key difference is the sheer scale of investment. Okay, public sector projects are normally very, very large. Okay, for example, the kind of money that government need to spend, for example, on building a dam. Okay, billions of dollars. Okay, private sector projects, on the other hand, mostly they are small and medium, and rarely they are large. Okay, but public sector projects, mostly they are large. The life of those projects, public sector projects, is very, very long. Like, for example, dams, easily, they have a useful life of more than 50 years. Highways, very, very long life. Private sector projects, on the other hand, okay, uski life short hoti hai. Any questions so far, Basav?
No, sir.
Okay, project cash flows. The public sector projects, the cash flows are meant not for profit. ठीक है, और उन cash flows को we can actually map them into three different categories. One is cost, C. The other one is benefit. And the third one is actually disbenefit. So cost, benefit, and disbenefit. Now, annual cash flows for the private sector project, everything is profit oriented. Okay, because the purpose of private sector projects is to make money. Okay, private sector projects are not run on charity basis. They are meant for profit. ठीक है, और किसी भी इकोनॉमी में making profit is not bad. ठीक है, जितनी भी प्राइवेट एंटरप्राइजेस हैं, ठीक है, हम जब सुबह उठते हैं शाम तक हमारा क्या है, पर्पस क्या है? तो एक्चुअली टू प्रोवाइड फॉर आवर फैमिली. ठीक है, टू मेक सम मनी. ठीक है, टू सस्टेन आवर लिविंग. ठीक है, सो मेकिंग प्रॉफिट एज लॉन्ग एज यू मेक देम लीगली इट्स नॉट बैड. इट्स नॉट बैड एट ऑल. ठीक है, पब्लिक सेक्टर प्रोजेक्ट्स ऑन द अदर हैंड, एज आई सेड, दे आर नॉट फॉर प्रॉफिट. Now, sources of funds. Government project की sources of funds क्या है? One of the main source is their revenues, which the governments generate through taxes and fees. ठीक है? But very, very often, it's not a rare thing, but very often, if the government is trying to start a very, very large scale project, what they do, they issue bonds, either locally or internationally. Okay, so the government thinks that they cannot spare enough money from the taxes and fees, okay, because there are lots of expenditures, okay, on behalf of the government, like for example, salaries of the employees, some other developmental and non-developmental expenditures. Okay, if they do not have enough cushion in their revenues, what they do? They issue bonds. Now, bond is what? Bond creates a liability for the government. Okay, so let's say if they issue a bond for 10 years, okay, so the government will take money from public for 10 years, or let's say from institutions for 10 years, and after 10 years, the government have to repay that. For example, let's say they generated $10 billion or 10 billion rupees. So they will pay back 10 billion rupees plus some profit on top of that. Is that clear, Basu?
Yes, sir.
Okay, but private sector projects, on the other hand, they rely on stocks, which is shares, bonds like corporate bonds, and loans. Loans are normally generated or borrowed, money is borrowed from banks. Okay, interest. So suppose if the government is borrowing from public, assume that, okay, normally the interest rate is lower. But if private sector is borrowing money from public, the interest rate is higher. Why is that?
So because profit ज़्यादा seek कर रहे होते हैं through private projects and public projects में नहीं होता.
Okay, partially yes, but there is a very, very specific reason for it. Anyone else?
So rate of return, maybe it's higher, set higher in private projects compared to public projects.
No, there is another very, very crystal clear reason. Okay, let me ask you a question. Okay, as an investor, will you be more comfortable in lending money to government of Pakistan versus lending money to Haja and Sons? Somewhere in, for example, let's say somewhere in the remote city of Pakistan.
Government of Pakistan?
Yes. Okay. So lending to government of Pakistan, it's a low risk lending. But government to a private, lending to a private entity is a high risk lending. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So अगर government को आप lend कर रहे हैं, it means that there is a low risk and you need a low return, that's okay. But if you are taking more risk by lending your money to the private entity, you need a high return. Okay, so interest rate, please mark, take a note. Interest rate is driven by risk and something else, but mainly risk. Okay? Now, selection criteria. Now, public sector projects, they are using multiple criteria. For example, benefit cost analysis. For example, the impact of a particular project on the environment. Okay, so they use multiple criteria. Private sector projects, since their main purpose is to make money, they're profit oriented, so their only concern is rate of return. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, environment of evaluation. Okay, normally public sector projects, whenever we are evaluating those projects, we consider the political implications of those projects. So these decisions are normally politically inclined. Private sector projects, on the other hand, they're purely made on economic reasons. Okay, now political inclination in public sector projects, it is not necessarily bad. Okay, I gave an example to the last two groups. For example, National Highway Authority in Pakistan, it's a federal level entity. They would like to build a road, and there are two options. One, to build a road, let's say from Islamabad to Abbottabad, let's say. Okay, and that particular project based on benefit cost ratio is economically justified. But there is another option. supposed to build a highway from Quetta to Chaman in Balochistan. Okay? That project is also economically justified. Okay? But after certain debate, the government thinks that it is now time to invest in Balochistan, okay, and they divert that investment to, let's say, Quetta-Chaman highway, okay. So that decision is politically inclined, okay. Political debates actually bring balance in your decision making. It is not necessarily bad. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Another example. For example, in Canada, okay, the province in which I live is Alberta, okay. Its main economy depends on oil and gas, okay, lots of oil and gas reserves, okay. There is another province, it is British Columbia, BC, okay. It's a port city actually, okay. So Alberta government signed an MOU with the US government, okay, in the last so many years. And the purpose was to build a pipeline from Alberta to the US market. Okay, US was happy, okay, but British Columbia in other provinces, they opposed that pipeline. And the reason was those provinces thought that it will be an environmental disaster. Okay, because we have to cut lots of trees. Okay, Alberta government is in favor of the project. BC and some other provinces, they are against it. Okay, so these kind of discussions, as I say, it brings only balance in your decision making. Okay, so political debate on any particular issue is not necessarily bad. It is actually beauty of any democratic societies. Okay, there are certain types of contracts. Okay, the first two, like a fixed cost contract and cost reimbursable contract, these were more traditional types of contract. Okay, in these types of contracts, the contractors do not share any project risk. Why is that? For example, government of Pakistan is planning to build a highway, as I said. Okay, or let's say they would like to install some street lights somewhere. For example, what they do, they try to find out cost of the project. Suppose the cost of the project is 100 million. Okay, rupees, let's say. Okay, and the government thinks that okay, we are asking, for example, bids, and somebody offered a bid of, let's say, 120 million. Okay, and that's the lowest bid, for example. Okay, so if this contract is awarded to this particular contractor, the contractor is not sharing any risk. Okay, based on the cost estimation, they are making $20 million, 20 million rupees straight away. But there is another type of contract, which is, by the way, which was very popular in North America. It is cost reimbursable. Okay, so government has a list of approved contractors. Okay, and what they do, based on their specialties, they assign a contract and tell the, for example, the contractor that we will give you cost plus 10%. Okay, so cost is entirely reimbursed by the government, and on top of that, they give 10% as a profit to the contractor. Okay, so in these type of contracts, okay, as I said, they are traditional type. The contractor do not share any risk. But the contracts that are very popular now, it is design build projects. So the contractor is responsible for the design stage. Okay, they build the project. Okay, and then they hand over the project's operation to the government. Okay, so they build the project and then they hand it over to the government. The most comprehensive one is design, build, operate, maintain, finance projects. Okay, they're called DBOMF. Okay, it's a turnkey approach. Okay, so the government is not bothered by any component of the project. Okay, वो सारी चीजें कॉन्ट्रैक्टर को दे देता है, ठीक है. Even managing the cash flows, वो भी कॉन्ट्रैक्टर का काम है, ठीक है. There is a difference, ये मैं आपको एक्सप्लेन कर लूंगा, ठीक है. अब as I said, it's a turnkey approach. जब आप गाड़ी खरीदते हैं, ठीक है, तो आप you are not worried about how was this car, for example, designed, how was this car built, ठीक है. You go there, ठीक है, pay the full amount and get the keys. It's a turnkey. Or turn the key in your ignition, ठीक है, and you do not bother actually about the remaining processes. So it's a very, very comprehensive type of contract. Now, contractor is responsible for all components of DBOMF. Okay, approval stays with the government. Okay, there is a fine difference about finances. So finances are managed by the contractor, but they are arranged by the government. So there is a difference. For example, again, highway. Contractor is building a highway, let's say from point A to point B. So it's a large project. Okay. So the contractor is responsible, for example, how much money they would like to spend on street lights, or let's say on fencing, on building bridges, for example. Okay. Or let's say on the cat eyes or road marking, whatever. It's contractor's responsibility actually to decide about that. Okay. कौन से बैंक में उन्होंने अकाउंट खोलना है for money, ठीक है. फाइनेंस मैनेजर उन्होंने हायर करना है, ठीक है. It is government's responsibility to obtain those funds. So funds acquire करना government की responsibilities है, उनको manage करना contractor की responsibility है, ठीक है. Last bullet में ये है, there is a form, it's called DBOM. इससे यहाँ पे F निकल गया. So it means that acquiring the funds and then managing funds is actually government's responsibility. Contractor को वो इजाजत नहीं देता. So it's government responsibility to decide how much money they would like to spend on street lighting, for example, fencing, bridges के ऊपर कितना करेंगे, ठीक है. So it's government responsibility. Is this clear, Basu?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, benefit cost ratio. Now, it's a fundamental evaluation technique for public sector projects. Okay? And why do we need it? USK context, man. Okay? It is mandatory to establish that the benefits should be more than the cost, and only then the government can start a project. Okay? Government randomly project start nahi kar sakta. First of all, they have to establish that the benefits of the project are more than the cost of the project. Okay? There are three key words, okay, in this ratio, in this cost and benefit ratio. One is benefit, the other one is disbenefits, and third one is costs. Now, all cash flows, so cash flows. In project, what do we have? In projects, we have cash flows. So cash flows can be either mapped to benefits, they can be mapped to disbenefits, or costs. ठीक है? इसकी classification is super important. Reason? Because the ratio, the way we calculate it, it is B minus D divided by C. So if I misclassify any of the cash flow, it means that as a result, whatever ratio I calculate, it will not be correct. Can you see that, Basu?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so classification, sorry, correct classification is super important. अब ये देखें, benefits क्या है? Benefits are advantages to be experienced by the owner, which is public. Disbenefits, expected undesirable or negative consequences to the owner, again public. Okay, cost, हर project की construction का एक cost है. For example, building a dam, $5 billion. So where is that money coming from? It is coming from government's kitty. Okay. Now, pay attention. This is super important. Putting a dollar value on cost is super easy. आपको अपनी cost का पता है. ठीक है. So if you are building a highway, construction material पे कितना पैसा लगा, labor cost पे कितना लगा, ठीक है. Equipment के rental पे कितना पैसा लगा. You know that everything. You can put dollar amount on the cost. But how do you put dollar value on benefit and cost? So one of the typical benefits of constructing, for example, BRT Peshawar. Okay, one of the benefit to the public is that it has reduced commute time. That's benefit. So how do you quantify that benefit? That's one of the main challenge. So calculating this ratio is super easy. It's B minus D divided by C. But the challenge is how do you quantify B and how do you quantify D? Okay. Note number one, super important. All terms in this ratio must be expressed in the same unit. Either all of them has to be in PW or AW or FW. Okay. As an engineer, you know the importance of expressing everything in the same unit. ठीक है? अगर same unit में नहीं है, your first task is actually to convert those units into a same unit. Note number two, do not put minus sign in front of costs. And there is a reason for it. Whenever I classify anything as a cost, तो फिर मुझे negative sign लगाने की जरूरत ही नहीं है. So Basil, मैं आपसे क्वेश्चन करने लगा हूँ. Are you with me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
आपकी GIK में monthly expenses कितने हैं?
So it varies. Specific amount.
मुझे random number दे दो. You do not have to be exact.
Maybe
random number दे दो.
20K.
20K. अब मैंने बासिल से पूछा कि what are your monthly expenses in GK? He said 20K, 20,000. He did not say minus 20 because it's expenditure, it's a cash outflow. Technically, he should have said minus 20. But जब मैंने उसको कहा कि expenses, तो expenses itself, it's a classification. मैंने classify कर लिया. ठीक है? So whenever we classify a cash flow as a cost, I do not have to put minus sign. जिस तरह बासिल का response था, कि 20K, उसने मुझे minus 20K नहीं बताया. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Good. Okay, let's do an exercise now. Problem 9.4, classification of cash flows. A, loss of income to local businesses because of a new freeway. So suppose आपके local businesses थे, ठीक है, here. Government ने एक freeway बना लिया, ठीक है. Now the whole traffic is actually diverted in that direction. तो इससे क्या हुआ? The local businesses actually suffer. So it's a disbenefit. ठीक है? Okay, let me take you back actually to the previous slide. One last comment. This conventional BC ratio, it is B minus D divided by C. So numerator belongs to public. Denominator belongs to government. ठीक है? Public is on the top. That's the way to remember it. Public is always on the top. ठीक है? So B minus D, which is benefits and disbenefit, it relates to public and it will be in the numerator. Okay, B, less travel time because of loop bypass, just like BRT. Okay, it's a benefit. Okay, C, 400,000 annual income to local businesses because of tourism created by national park. So a government, suppose they built a national park somewhere, and because of that, tourism increased, and because of increased tourism, for example, motels, hotels, restaurant, okay, there was a benefit to local businesses. Okay, so it's a benefit. So again, anything related to public is either benefit or disbenefit. It cannot be cost. Okay, is that clear, Basu?
Ji sir.
All right. Now, cost of fish from a hatchery to stock a lake at the state park. North America, in the US and Canada, what governments do, they stock lakes actually with fish hatchery. ठीक है? क्यों? Because if you go out with family, you can actually fish in those lakes. ठीक है? तो जो cost है वो कौन पे कर रहा है? Government पे कर रहा है. So it's cost. Okay. Now list tire wear because of smoother road surfaces. Government ने roads बना लिए, ठीक है? और उससे टायर का wear and tear कम हो गया. So it's a benefit to the public. ठीक है? Now decrease in property values due to the closure of government research lab. Government ने एक research lab close कर लिया in some locality and the property prices went down. So it's a disbenefit. ठीक है? As two. School overcrowding because of a military base expansion. So for example, अगर मर्दान में PRC जो पंजाब रेजिमेंटल सेंटर अगर वो बेस let's say expand कर देता है, ठीक है, it means कि वहां पे more military families आएंगी, ठीक है, it means कि वहां के जो local schools हैं उसमें बच्चे दाखिल होंगे, ठीक है, it means कि वहां पे जो teacher ratio है student का वो ज्यादा हो जाएगा, overcrowding हो जाएगी. So it's actually a disbenefit. ठीक है, to the public. Now H, revenue to local motels because of an extended holiday. The best thing I like about Canada is some of the holidays, not all of them, but some of them are just like this. Monday of first week of September. ठीक है? So these holidays are not on a specific date, okay, but they are on a specific day, okay. So you have Saturday off, you have Sunday off, and you have Monday off. So you have extended weekend. तो उससे होगा क्या कि लोग families के साथ निकलेंगे बाहर, उससे होगा क्या, motels, hotels उनको फायदा है, ठीक है. So revenue to local motels because of an extended weekend holiday. Now how simple is it like for governments कि वो अपने holidays को इस तरह announce करें, ठीक है. By these small measures actually you can stimulate local businesses, okay. So it's a benefit to the public. ठीक है, can you see that process?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now if we misclassify any cash flow तो हम mistakes करेंगे, ठीक है. और misclassification normally आती है by treating benefit as a cost, ठीक है. रेशो क्या है मेरा BC का? It is benefit minus disbenefit divided by cost divided by C, ठीक है. तो अगर किसी चीज को मैंने misclassify कर लिया तो होगा क्या कि disbenefit को मैं as a cost लूंगा और वो यहाँ पे फिर add हो जाएगा. Let's see that. Suppose I have 3 numbers. My benefit is $10, my disbenefit is 8, and my cost is 5. तो जब मैं BC calculate करूंगा the correct way, तो वो क्या होगा 10 minus 8 divided by 5, which is 0.4. It's a ratio, ठीक है. लेकिन अगर मैं misclassify करूंगा benefit as a cost, तो होगा क्या, ये 8 नीचे आ जाएगा और यहाँ पे add हो जाएगा, ठीक है. So my ratio now is 0.77, which is again incorrect, ठीक है. अब ये रेशो मुझे क्या एक्सप्लेन कर रहा है? It is B divided by C ratio, which is 0.4, ठीक है. Which means that the benefit is only 40% of the cost. In other words, my benefit is less than my C. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
ठीक है, अब आप यहां पे देखें, एक और रेशो है जिसको हम कहते हैं मॉडिफाइड डीसी रेशो. Modified DC ratio. For example, I have a typical cash flow series, okay, which is 0, 1, 2, and let's say 3. Okay, I have an initial investment of minus 50K. फिर मुझे एक revenue, suppose this is my benefit now. हम benefits की बात कर रहे हैं, 20, another benefit of 30, and then I have another cost of, let's say, for example, 30. ठीक है? So B minus D divided by C, which is the conventional BC ratio, ठीक है? वो cost को कैसे calculate करेगा? It will be the PW of all costs. Suppose मैं PW के through जा रहा हूँ, तो वो 50 होगा और इसका present worth जो 30 का है, और इन दोनों को जब मैं sum करूंगा, that would be my total cost. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
ठीक है?
सर आप इन सम में माइनस साइन को तो इग्नोर करेंगे ना?
Yes, साइन इग्नोर करेंगे. Yes. जब मैं रेशो कैलकुलेट करूंगा साइन इग्नोर करूंगा. डोंट वरी, डू नॉट गेट कंफ्यूज विद दिस साइन. ठीक है?
ओके सर, थैंक यू सर.
यू वेलकम जी, एनी टाइम. नाउ मॉडिफाइड बीसी रेशो में वो जो मिसक्लासिफिकेशन का एक खतरा है ना, जिसमें मैं डिस बेनिफिट्स को एज अ कॉस्ट क्लासिफाई कर सकता हूं बाय मिस्टेक, अब उसको टेक इनटू अकाउंट कर रहा है. अब मॉडिफाइड बीसी रेशो कह रहा है कि कंसिडर ओनली द इनिशियल इन्वेस्टमेंट इन योर डिनोमिनेटर, और जो आपका ओ एंड एम कॉस्ट है, ठीक है, जो कन्वेंशनल बीसी है ना, उसमें मैं ओ एंड एम कॉस्ट को यहां नीचे ऐड करूंगा. ठीक है? लेकिन मॉडिफाइड में कहते हैं कि नहीं, कंसिडर ओनली द इनिशियल इन्वेस्टमेंट इन द डिनोमिनेटर एंड ट्रीट द जो बाद में आने वाली ओ एंड एम कॉस्ट है, ठीक है, द इंसूइंग ओ एंड एम कॉस्ट एज अ कॉस्ट, सॉरी एज अ डिस बेनिफिट, तो वो न्यूमरेटर में आप करें. ठीक है? सो दैट्स व्हाई इट इज दिस, द कन्वेंशनल रेशो इज मॉडिफाइड नाउ. मॉडिफिकेशन कहां पे है? मॉडिफिकेशन ये है कि बजाय ओ एंड एम कॉस्ट को मैं नीचे डिनोमिनेटर में इसको टेक इनटू अकाउंट करूं, आई शुड take into account, sorry, I should look after this O and M cost in the numerator. ठीक है? In other simple words, forget about what's called the confusion. Modified BC ratio में हम सिर्फ initial investment, which is this $50 million, हम इसको लेते हैं. That's it. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Good. एक चीज जो कि बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, वो ये है कि हम करेंगे, लेट्स से सैल्वेज वैल्यू का क्या करेंगे. सपोज मेरे पास दो रेशोज आ गई, यहां पे मैं लिखता हूं, सो पे अटेंशन. मेरे पास एक कन्वेंशनल बीसी, सो कन्वेंशनल बीसी इज इक्वल टू बी माइनस डी डिवाइड बाय सी. जो मेरे पास मॉडिफाइड है, मॉडिफाइड बीसी, वो है बी माइनस डी माइनस ओ एंड एम कॉस्ट डिवाइडेड बाय इनिशियल कॉस्ट. सैल्वेज कन्वेंशनल में कहां पे आएगा? डिनोमिनेटर में या न्यूमरेटर में?
सर आई थिंक डिनोमिनेटर.
दैट्स अ करेक्ट आंसर. ठीक है? क्यों? कि आपकी जो कॉस्ट है, कॉस्ट इज फॉर एग्जांपल इन टर्म्स ऑफ परचेजिंग द मशीनरी. ठीक है? तो आपका जो सैल्वेज है वो कॉस्ट से फिर माइनस हो जाएगा, लेकिन उसका पीडब्ल्यू या एडब्ल्यू. इज दैट क्लियर?
यस सर.
गुड. ठीक है? तो आपका सैल्वेज आपके कॉस्ट से माइनस होता है. यस
सर, तो बेसिकली आप अपने सैल्वेज को जो है पहले आप डिस्काउंट करेंगे और सेम उस पर लाने के लिए, देन यू विल सब्ट्रैक्ट इट फ्रॉम द इनिशियल कॉस्ट, राइट?
यस, एब्सोल्युटली. अगर आप पीडब्ल्यू को बेस बना रहे हैं तो यस, we'll do that.
Okay.
We must do that actually. We must do that. अच्छा, मॉडिफाइड में कहां पे कॉस्ट आएगा, सॉरी सैलवेज आएगा?
सर न्यूमरेटर में वी विल ऑपरेशन मैनेजमेंट में इसको शायद कंसीडर कर लें।
नो, मॉडिफाइड में भी ये नीचे ही आएगा डिनोमिनेटर में। तो टेक अ नोट, salvage value will always be in the denominator. ठीक है, let's move forward. अच्छा, now we have a ratio, it is called profitability index. Now as the name suggests, it actually, what does it tell me? It shows me the financial attractiveness of a project. It means that profitability index is calculated for private sector projects. क्योंकि पब्लिक में तो आपकी प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी है नहीं, so we calculate this ratio for private sector projects. Now question for you, Basil, और फिर हम एक डिस्कशन इसके ऊपर करेंगे. Suppose Agrochemicals, they would like to build a new facility or chemical manufacturing facility, for example, in some remote city. ठीक है? The feasibility report says that it will actually aid let's say pollution to the environment. Pollution, ठीक है? तो ये pollution benefit है या disbenefit है for the public?
Disbenefit.
ये disbenefit है. तो जब हम DC रेशो कैलकुलेट करेंगे तो we will take into account the disbenefit. अगर सपोज प्राइवेट सेक्टर प्रोजेक्ट ये हम DC कर रहे हैं, सपोज हम कर सकते हैं, nobody is stopping us. But do you think by adding, अगर pollution add कर रहा है तो do you think कि इससे एग्रोकेमिकल्स की प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी पे फर्क आता है?
No sir, because profitability पे फर्क नहीं आएगा, but like it will be a disbenefit to the government, to the public.
हाँ, तो the keyword is profitability पे फर्क नहीं आएगा, ठीक है? तो for that reason, whenever we are calculating profitability index, okay, we include everything, but we do not include the disbenefits in this ratio. हम disbenefits को ignore करते हैं, ठीक है? And it is just like a modified BC ratio. ठीक है? इस स्लाइड में और कुछ नहीं है. Let me go further. Key क्या है? If I'm evaluating benefit cost analysis for a single project, all the terms B minus D divided by C, everything has to be in the same unit. That's number one. Number two, I do not have to put minus sign in front of cost. Cost B आपका positive ही आएगा. Number three, salvage value, when they are estimated, they are subtracted from cost. Or modified or conventional दोनों में we treat salvage value in the denominator. ठीक है? इसका decision criteria क्या है? We will accept those projects for which the BC ratio is greater than 1. So if BC is greater than or equal to 1, it means that the benefit is greater than or equal to cost. It is justified. अगर less than 1 है, so it is not economically acceptable. So that is decision criteria for BC. Decision criteria for profitability index is exactly the same. If PI is greater than 1, we accept the project. Okay, if it is less than 1, it is not economically acceptable. Examples करेंगे, and in the next, I'll try to finish it in the next 5 to 8 minutes. Okay, the cost of grading and spreading gravel on a short rural road is expected to be $300,000. So ये $300,000 है क्या? How do you classify it? Suppose in B, D, and C. What is it?
Initial investment.
But what is it? Is it B, is it D, or is it C?
C.
C है, ये cost.
Oh,
it's cost. Yeah, do not get confused. The road will have to be maintained at a cost of $25,000 per year. ये per year है, ये AW है, but is it cost, benefit, or disbenefit?
So again, a cost.
ये कॉस्ट है, ये देखिए लिखा भी है, ठीक है, यहां पे भी लिखा हुआ है, ठीक है. Even though the new road is not very smooth, it allows access to an area that previously could only be reached with off-road vehicles. The improved accessibility has led to 150% increase in the property values along the road. ठीक है, तो अब ये 150% increase in the property values, what is it?
Benefit.
ये benefit है, it's benefit to the public, उनकी property prices बढ़ गई. Okay, if the previous market value of the property was $900,000, calculate the BC ratio using an interest rate of 6% per year and a 20 years study period. अब क्या है? My $300,000 is cost, and this is actually PW already. The $25,000 is cost, but this is AW. Can you see that? Masa?
सर रिपीट कर दें प्लीज, आपकी आवाज कट गई थी.
Sorry, apologize. मैं ये कह रहा था कि the $300,000 is cost, but this is actually the PW, initial cost है. The $25,000 again, it's a cost, but this is per year, so that's why it's a AW. तो हमने क्या पढ़ा था कि हम सारी चीजों को, the first thing we have to express everything in the same unit. Do you remember that?
Yes sir. Sir इसको भी आप प्रेजेंट वर्ड में कन्वर्ट कर लेंगे, डिस्काउंट कर लेंगे for certain amount.
Absolutely. So let's do that. ठीक है. Now appreciation of the property, it's my benefit. और कितनी appreciation हुई? This is my new price. So the price is appreciated by 150%. So the new price is 900,000 multiplied by 1.5. The old price is 900,000, and this is my benefit, which is gain in the property prices or appreciation in the property prices. So the appreciation in property prices is $450,000. Okay, now convert all cash flows in the same unit for C. अब C क्या है? The initial cost was $300,000. The annual maintenance cost was 25, so that's why I multiplied it with PF factor, and my N was 20. Okay, interest rate was given at 6%. ठीक है, तो my total cost, the PW of total cost is 586,748. Okay, so what is my BC ratio now? BC ratio is B minus D divided by C. B is 450, which is right here. There is no information about this benefit, so that's 0, and divided by C, which is 586. So my ratio is 0.77. Is it acceptable, this project, or is it not acceptable?
So acceptable because less than
not
one.
Justified. Oh, come on. It's less than one.
Mixed up. नहीं sir, मैंने भी mix up कर दिया होगा. One or less than or greater than all.
कोई बात, ठीक है. देखें, आपको रिमेंबर करने की जरूरत भी नहीं है. B divided by C is greater than or equal to 1. What does it mean? B is greater than. अब C को इस तरफ लेके आए. अगर बेनिफिट कॉस्ट से ज्यादा है तो जस्टिफाइड है. ठीक है
सर ये बेनिफिट्स कैसे कैलकुलेट करें, सही रिपीट कर देंगे?
ये बिल्कुल मैं कर लूंगा. ये देखें, जो आपकी न्यू प्रॉपर्टी प्राइसेस हैं वो कितने हैं? ओल्ड प्रॉपर्टी प्राइस वाज 900,000 and the property appreciated by 150%. 150% is equal to 1.5. ठीक है, so the property increased by a factor of 1.5. तो आपकी न्यू प्राइसेस क्या हैं? 900,000 multiplied by 1.5. ठीक है,
यस सर.
आपका ओल्ड प्राइस क्या था? 900,000. ठीक है, दोनों का डिफरेंस क्या है? 450. ठीक है.
Okay, thank you sir.
You're welcome sir. Okay, problem 9.12, last problem. It says calculate BC ratio for the following cash flow estimates at a discount rate of 7% per year. ठीक है, अब क्या है? If W of benefits is 30.8 million. Okay, AW of death benefits is 105. First cost, so this is PW now, is $1.2 million. M&O cost per year, again, this is AW, is 400,000. Project life kya hai? 20. So what is my task? Convert everything into the same unit. और फिर तो रेशो बहुत आसान है. It's BC equal to B minus D divided by C. So the conversion part is challenging. Let's do that. First, convert all cash flows to AW. अब मैं AW में कर रहा हूँ. Why? Because ये वाला value is AW. The M&O is AW. So most of the items are in AW. ठीक है? एक है PW में, दूसरा है FW में. So converting all cash flows into AW is much easier now. How?
Excuse me, sir.
Go ahead.
Sir, अगर हम present world में भी करें या future world में भी करें सारे cash flows को, तो answer will be the same, right?
Answer should be exactly the same to the penny.
Same.
ठीक है? Okay. Now benefit का आपका AW क्या है? Because this benefit was FW, if you remember. Okay, it's FW. Can you see here? Okay, so इसको मैं AF के साथ multiply करूँगा. Okay, so जो AW of the benefit is 751,212. ये 0.0243 कहाँ से आ गया? Factor table से, FT. Factor tables. Now this benefits का मेरे पास AW क्या है? It's 105. It's already given in AW because this was per year. Do you remember that puzzle? Okay, right here.
जी sir.
ठीक है?
जी जी.
Okay, अब C देखते हैं. Total cost. So 1.2 million was the initial cost. मतलब है PW इसको AP के साथ multiply करें. And this 400,000 was the recurring cost, M&O. तो ये already AW है. तो इसके साथ मैंने कुछ नहीं करना. ठीक है? So यहाँ पे ये factor यहाँ add करें. तो my cost equivalent worth is 513,268. And this is the way I calculate my BC. So my BC is 751,212 minus 105,000 divided by this. So the ratio is 1.26. Now, is it justified?
Yes, sir.
It's greater than 1. Justified.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. ठीक है?
सर फॉर सपोज अगर हमारे पास सैल्वेज वैल्यू भी होती है तो सर वो डिनोमिनेटर में कॉस्ट के साथ माइनस हो जाती ना?
Yes. और उसका AW माइनस हो जाता.
यस, थैंक यू सर.
You're welcome. लेकिन आपका सैल्वेज वैल्यू है क्या? सैल्वेज वैल्यू इज योर FW. Yes or no?
यस सर. फ्यूचर वैल्यू सर ऑफ द कैश फ्लो.
यस, और इसको फिर AF के साथ हम मल्टीप्लाई कर दें और सपोज वो आता 10,200 लेट्स से, तो ये फिर मैं यहां से माइनस करता हूं इसको. नो सॉरी, नॉट हियर बट ये जो डिनोमिनेटर है फ्रॉम दिस वन. ठीक है?
यस सर.
गुड. ओके, नाउ एक और चीज आप मुझे बताएं. व्हाट इफ आई वाज रिक्वायर्ड टू कैलकुलेट अ मॉडिफाइड BC रेशो?
सर तो बस वो ऑपरेशन मैनेजमेंट कॉस्ट से न्यूमरेटर में माइनस हो जाती थी
ऑपरेशन
of-
मेंटेनेंस कॉस्ट. एग्जैक्टली, ठीक है. बजाय कि हम इसको यहाँ C में ऐड करें, हम इसको एज अ डिस बेनिफिट माइनस करते ऊपर न्यूमरेटर से. यस.
यस सर.
Good. I thank you very much for your attention and thank you very much, Basu, for your time and volunteering.
Anytime, sir.
You're very welcome, sir. So, if you do not have any questions, let me mark your attendance before I forget. Okay, I did mark your attendance, and as I said, if you do not have any question, I'll see you inshallah in my next lecture. Okay.
Allah Hafiz, sir.
Okay, Jalla. Assalamu alaikum.